I waited 2 hours at that damn restaurant. 44 years old. Mechanical engineer. Spent my life being the reliable guy, the one who shows up early, pays the bills, fixes things that break. I don't consider myself romantic, but I'd made reservations, even put on the blazer she liked. 3 years together. Anniversary night. And I was sitting there with a half-warm bread basket and my stomach eating itself. She wasn't answering my texts, wasn't calling, just on the way with a heart emoji 2 hours ago. I even refreshed her location. She was close, like walking distance close. I looked up, and there she was, not walking in. No. Sitting outside a bar across the street with 2 of her friends. Laughing. Phone in her hand. I saw her point at something on the screen. One of the others doubled over laughing. I knew it in my gut. They were reading my messages. She never saw me. I didn't wave or storm over. I just flagged the waitress, paid the check, tipped well, and left. Drove home in silence. When she came in later, maybe expecting tears or a fight, I was already packing. I told her I was done. Her face didn't twist with sadness. It twisted into something colder. She said, flat like it was nothing, "You'll regret it." Not, "I'm sorry." Not, "Wait, let's talk." Just that. I'd always thought the worst thing in life was being left. Turns out, sometimes the worst thing is not being left soon enough. It wasn't always like that. Or maybe it was, and I just didn't want to see it. When we first met, Brianna was magnetic. That kind of person who walked into a room and everyone noticed. She had this wild energy, this laugh that made you feel like you were in on some private joke. I was quiet, steady. She said that was what she liked. That I made her feel grounded. The first 6 months felt like a movie. Late night drives. Impulsive weekend trips. Sex that felt like connection. She'd grab my hand in public, post photos of us with captions like "my rock." She told me she'd never had someone like me, someone who showed up, who meant what he said. And I believed her. I ignored little things. The way she made fun of my old car. How she rolled her eyes when I talked about work. The way her friends kind of looked through me like I wasn't really there. But I brushed it off. I thought, she's just fiery, passionate. I'm too sensitive. I bought into the idea that relationships take work. That no one's perfect. That if I just stayed patient, she'd relax, she'd grow, she'd settle. What I didn't realize then was this. Some people don't want peace. They feed on chaos. And they choose partners who won't fight back. The first time it really hit me that something was off was during a trip to Florida. I had booked us a long weekend, nothing fancy, just a beach and a quiet Airbnb. I thought it would help us reset. Things had been tense, and I figured maybe we just needed space away from everyday stress. First night, she seemed happy. We went out, had dinner, drank a little too much. But by the second day, she was already bored. Said the town was dead. Said I didn't do anything spontaneous anymore. That night, she went out alone to grab a drink and clear her head. I offered to come. She laughed and said no. She was gone for hours. No texts, no updates. I stayed up on the couch, phone in hand, refreshing every few minutes. When she finally came back, around 3 a.m., she was drunk and laughing. Said I was being controlling. Said I was making her feel smothered. I apologized. For being worried. For being too intense. For ruining her night. Yeah. I actually apologized. That's how deep I was in it. That's how much I believed I had to earn basic respect. After that, something shifted in me. Not loudly. Not dramatically. Just a feeling I couldn't shake. That I was more alone with her than I'd ever been by myself. After Florida, I convinced myself things would get better. That's the trap, isn't it? When you're used to fixing things, you think you can fix people too. I told myself she was just going through something. That she'd come around, calm down, find her footing. I doubled down on being understanding. Cooked dinner more often. Gave her space when she snapped. Bit my tongue when she mocked me in front of her friends. That was around the time she quit her job. Said she needed time to figure things out. I supported it. Paid rent, groceries, insurance. She started sleeping in later and later. Said she was depressed. I offered to help her find a therapist. She called me condescending. I worked more hours to cover everything. And the more I gave, the more it felt like I was disappearing. My friends started noticing. A couple of them stopped reaching out. One night, my buddy Dave said, "You don't seem like yourself anymore." I laughed it off, told him I was just tired. Julie, my sister, was more direct. She came over, looked me dead in the eye, and said, "This doesn't look like love." I remember brushing her off too. Said she didn't understand. Said we just had a rough patch. What I really meant was, I'm scared. Scared to admit I might have wasted 3 years. Scared of what starting over at my age would look like. Scared I'd never find anyone again. One night, I finally confronted Brianna. Asked her if she was happy. If she even wanted to be with me anymore. She didn't answer at first. Just stared at the TV. Then she sighed and said, "I'm just tired of being your emotional support animal." Those were her words. Like I was a burden. Like I wasn't the one holding everything up. And the worst part? I apologized again. I actually said, "I'm sorry you feel that way." Like her neglect was my fault. Like her disappointment was something I had caused by not being exciting enough, wild enough, broken enough to fix. That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling while she slept beside me like nothing had happened. And I realized I was already alone. I just hadn't packed yet. Things started unraveling faster after that night. It wasn't some dramatic blow-up. Just a slow slide into something I can only describe as quietly devastating. She stopped pretending to be interested. I'd come home from a 10-hour shift, and she wouldn't look up from her phone. Dishes would pile up. Laundry untouched. I'd ask if everything was okay, and she'd shrug or say I was nagging. Then I found the messages. She left her laptop open one afternoon while I was fixing the Wi-Fi. I wasn't snooping, at least not at first. But the messages were right there. Her group chat with her 2 closest friends. Dozens of screenshots. My texts. My voicemails. One where I was asking if she was okay. Another saying I loved her. All captioned with things like, "Here we go again, face with tears of joy, and he's like a sad little dad with no kids." She called me her ATM with anxiety. They joked about how easy it was to get me to pay for things. Called me a rescue dog. Said I cried through sex once, and would probably apologize if she cheated. I just sat there, staring. Not even angry. Not yet. Just numb. I closed the laptop. Didn't say anything for 2 days. Then she asked me to co-sign a loan. Said she wanted to start a small business. Wouldn't tell me what kind. Said I was being controlling when I hesitated. That if I really loved her, I'd believe in her dreams. When I said no, she threw a coffee mug at the wall and called me a selfish, bitter old man. That was the first time I truly saw it. The manipulation. The rage under the charm. The way she turned everything into guilt and shame. She started going out more after that, late nights, vague explanations, strange men liking all her posts. I didn't have solid proof, but I didn't need it anymore. I wasn't looking for evidence. I was looking for a way out. And the truth is, I already had it. I just hadn't used it yet. Our anniversary was the last thread. I had planned it anyway, even after everything. Made a reservation at the same place we went our first year, small Italian spot with dim lights and good wine. I don't know why. Habit maybe. Or hope, even if I didn't believe in it anymore. She never showed. 2 hours I sat there, dressed nice, trying to convince myself she was on her way, that traffic was bad, that maybe her phone had died. But the truth was I already knew. I checked her location. Still near downtown. And then I looked up and saw her. Through the front window, across the street. Sitting outside a bar with 2 of her friends. Laughing. Phone in her hand. Holding it up and showing something to the others. One of them bent over laughing. I don't remember walking out. I just remember the cold air hitting my face. I didn't go to the bar. I didn't confront her. I didn't cause a scene. I just walked to my car, drove home, and sat in the driveway for almost an hour. In silence. When she finally came home later that night, she was half smirking. Like she expected me to yell or cry or beg. I didn't do any of that. I told her, calmly, that I was done. She rolled her eyes and said, "You'll regret it." Not "I'm sorry," not even anger. Just a smug little threat. But that was it. The door closed. Not just physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually. Something in me just clicked off. The next morning, I started applying to jobs in other states. By the end of the week, I had 2 interviews lined up. I requested PTO, rented a U-Haul, told my boss I was relocating, gave my landlord 30 days notice. I didn't tell her anything. I moved through those weeks like a ghost. Quiet. Focused. Like every motion was a shovel digging me out of a grave I hadn't realized I was in. When I finally left, I didn't leave a note. Didn't say goodbye. Just loaded the truck while she was gone and drove out of Ohio like it was on fire. It was the calmest I'd felt in years. I thought leaving would be the end of it. It wasn't. The first week in New Mexico was quiet. Almost too quiet. I kept waiting for the other shoe to drop. And then it did, loudly. She started with texts. First the usual. "You're overreacting. We can fix this. Just talk to me." I didn't respond. Then came the guilt trips. "You left me with nothing. You abandoned me. You're ruining my life." When that didn't work, it got mean. "You're a pathetic coward. No one will ever want you. You'll die alone in the desert." I blocked her. Changed my number. She found my new work email. Sent dozens of messages, some desperate, some threatening. I saved them all. Created a folder, evidence. She emailed my boss. Told them I had stolen money from our shared account. There was no shared account. Said I was mentally unstable and might be dangerous. HR pulled me into a meeting. I thought I was going to throw up, but I had the receipts. I showed the messages, the harassment, the timeline of events. They believed me. Quietly, professionally, they gave me support. Kept it confidential. Didn't ask questions beyond what was necessary. But the shame I felt walking into that office? Like I'd brought my trash into a clean house. I'll never forget it. Then came the fake dating profiles. Photos of me. My name. Twisted bios. Messages going out to strangers pretending to be me, some flirty, some disgusting. I found out because one of the women tracked me down on LinkedIn and asked if I was okay. That's when I bought cameras for my apartment. Started locking everything twice. I was looking over my shoulder in grocery stores. Watching windows. Listening for footsteps. She never showed up in person, but her presence was everywhere. Digital fingerprints, threats, shadows, and inboxes. Every time I thought I'd taken back my peace, she reached for it again. Not with love. Not with sadness. But with control. And that's when I knew this wasn't about heartbreak for her. It was about power. The email that broke the last thread wasn't loud. No threats. No all-caps screaming. Just a quiet, surgical kind of cruelty. It came in at 3:17 a.m. I couldn't sleep. I was on the couch, mindlessly scrolling, too wired to rest. When I saw her name pop up in the inbox, something in me didn't flinch anymore. I clicked it like muscle memory. It said, "You're so easy to replace. I already found someone better. He doesn't cry when things get hard. He doesn't run. He doesn't need saving. He's not pathetic." That was it. No greeting. No sign-off. Just a scalpel sentence, meant to hit where she thought I bled the most. But here's the strange part. It didn't hurt. Not like before. I read it once. Then again. Then I closed the laptop and sat there for a long time. And the thought that came, so calm it scared me, was, she never loved me. She loved control. She loved how I absorbed her anger, paid her bills, stayed silent when she humiliated me. She loved being able to rewrite the story every time I started to question it. She didn't want a partner. She wanted a mirror that reflected her fantasy of herself. And when I cracked, she tried to shatter me too. I called a lawyer that week. Told them everything. Started therapy. Told my story out loud for the first time, and when I did, I felt like I'd been holding my breath for years. The therapist didn't say much at first. Just let me talk. At one point I said, "I think she hated me for staying." And he nodded slowly and said, "No, she hated you for still seeing her clearly." That line stayed with me. Because once I stopped looking at her through the lens of love, I saw the truth. She was never confused. She knew exactly what she was doing. And so did I. I had let it happen. I had stayed. And that wasn't weakness. That was conditioning. But now? Now I was done being a participant in my own erasure. Filing for a restraining order wasn't dramatic. It was paperwork. Just a long, grim list of things I had tried to ignore for too long. The lawyer guided me through it. We printed every message, screenshotted every fake profile. I wrote a timeline of events that stretched back nearly a year. At first, it felt surreal, like I was telling someone else's story. But then I remembered. No, this happened to me. I lived this. When court day came, I wasn't nervous. I was just tired. She showed up in heels and red lipstick, like she was walking into an audition. Sat there with her arms crossed, smirking like none of it was real. Like it was just a show, and I was the fool reading lines from a bad script. The judge was a woman in her 60s. No-nonsense type. She listened to my statement, read the messages, paused at a few of them, asked Brianna if she had anything to say. She launched into some rambling speech about love, about misunderstandings, about how I had abandoned her and twisted things to make her look unstable. Her voice cracked at just the right moments. She even dabbed at her eye with a tissue. The judge wasn't moved. She calmly said, "Miss Cole, your messages speak for themselves. Mr. Evans, the restraining order is granted effective immediately." Just like that. I walked out of the courtroom with no trophy, no victory lap, just a folder of documents and air in my lungs that felt cleaner than it had in years. That afternoon, I deleted every trace of her from my devices, changed my passwords, closed old accounts, wiped the photos. Not out of spite, out of necessity. I wasn't at war anymore. I didn't need reminders of the battlefield. That night, I sat outside my apartment with a beer, listening to the wind. Not music, not TV, just wind. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel watched. The weeks after court were quiet, almost suspiciously so. No more emails. No more surprise accounts. No HR calls. No anonymous tips. The silence felt unnatural at first, like I was waiting for her next move. But as the days stretched, it hit me. Maybe there was no next move. Maybe I'd finally pulled the last thread out of the net she'd kept me tangled in. My body didn't know what to do with peace. I started sleeping again. Not just crashing, actually sleeping. Dreamless, undisturbed. My appetite came back. Food started tasting like something other than obligation. I'd forgotten how much I liked breakfast. I went for long walks without checking over my shoulder. I stopped flinching when the phone buzzed. I stopped waiting for the sky to fall. I reconnected with my sister. Julie had been gentle through the whole thing. Never said, "I told you so," even though she could have. One Saturday, she flew out to visit me. We sat on my porch for hours just talking. No fixing. No analyzing. Just being. She cried a little. I did too. Then one day, out of nowhere, it came again. An Instagram DM from a burner account. No name. No profile pic. Just, "You look so lonely in that town." I didn't respond. Just took a screenshot, forwarded it to the lawyer, and blocked it. That was the last time I heard from her. And the silence that followed wasn't empty. It was full. Full of space. Full of breath. Full of the sound of my own thoughts again. Finally, not second-guessed. Not edited for someone else's comfort. I bought a used motorcycle off a guy in town. Nothing flashy. Just something that hummed when I rode it down long, open roads. I hadn't realized how much I'd missed motion that didn't mean escape, just movement for its own sake. I started smiling at strangers again. And more than anything, I started listening to my gut. Not because I was afraid of being hurt again, but because for once, I trusted myself enough to hear it. It's been a year. I live in a little one-bedroom near the mountains outside Albuquerque. It's not fancy, but it's mine. The walls are quiet. The floors don't creak like they're trying to warn me. My job at the aerospace firm is steady. Small team, decent pay, nobody screaming, nobody slamming doors. There's a coffee shop I go to on Sundays. The barista knows my order. I sit by the window and read, and sometimes I catch myself looking out at nothing, just breathing. That still surprises me, how good breathing can feel when no one's trying to suffocate you with silence or guilt. I haven't dated since. Not because I'm afraid, but because I'm finally learning to be enough on my own. I don't need someone to complete me. I needed space to uncollapse myself. I don't tell many people this story. It's not exactly first date material. But sometimes when someone says, "You're so calm," I smile a little. Because they don't know what it took to get here. They don't know the quiet rage it took to leave without a fight. The discipline it took to stay gone. The grief of realizing someone you loved never actually saw you as human, just useful. But I know. And here's the thing I didn't expect. I don't hate her. I don't forgive her either. Not in the fairy tale way people expect. But I don't need to. She doesn't live in my head anymore. She lives in a file folder. A sealed court record. A lesson. My only regret? I didn't leave the first time she laughed at me and called me boring. That should have been enough. But regret isn't poison. It's a compass. And mine points forward.